Hey everybody, welcome back to Elevator Pitch. My name is Joe Ennis, and today I am talking to Janet Waring. Janet is the CEO of Artform, and they are a company that helps other businesses with their SEO and analytics and website analytics to kind of just help drive more traffic and make sure that you always show up at the top of a Google search. A little bit more about Janet. Janet has more than 25 years of business development and marketing experience and creates dynamic campaigns that generate results, surpass expectations, and positively impact client revenue. She is known as a subject matter expert in data-driven marketing strategies. She is also a member of the Forbes Business Development Council and has put out a lot of good content there as well, which I'll link in the show notes below if you want to read more about Janet. I really enjoyed this episode. Janet had a lot of stuff to say about SEO. SEO is something that I personally hate doing myself. So I would definitely reach out to Janet if you have any questions on SEO or you want an expert to get your SEO done correctly. She gives a lot of very good tips for people that maybe don't want to, that maybe want to do it themselves, but she also brings a lot of expertise on what she does and how important it is for businesses. So enjoy the episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to Elevator Pitch. My name is Joe Ennis, and today I'm really excited because I have a longtime friend, Janet Waring, on the podcast. Janet, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
I'm going to be honest, right off the bat, it's kind of weird calling you Janet because I've always called you Mrs. Waring my entire life, so it is kind of weird getting to that point. But I'm excited to talk today. Janet, please let everybody know a little bit more about Artform. And a little bit about what you guys do.
Sure. So we actually started Artform 23 years ago, and it has gone on kind of a wild ride. We grew a website division that grew so big, I made a decision to break off and joined another agency. I think that was in 2010. So for the past 10 years, I had been a part of two different agencies that I helped grow, $1 to $8 million. And the one I just left, we grew to $3 million after 3 years. And now I am back at Artform and doing primarily SEO and digital marketing services. So can't believe that was a hard question to answer, Joe.
Yeah, no, it happens. Don't worry. That's really cool. So what are some of the biggest issues that you've seen? Obviously, you've helped two companies grow to millions of dollars. What are some of the biggest issues that you've seen potentially on the, SEO side of things, or just in your current position that you and Artform are trying to solve?
Yeah, so right now, particularly during the pandemic, everything is online. And so a lot of people are having to evaluate their online presence. So we're doing a lot of auditing, website auditing, tone and messaging auditing, product positioning. So we're really kind of doing the whole gamut with clients and what their needs are to present themselves the best online. And then helping them be found online. The visibility piece is obviously important. A lot of people spend a lot of time and devote to their website, to their content, and then they get frustrated because they're like, hey, I wrote this content or I put this content out, but it's not getting found. And so that's where SEO comes in. And that's changing rapidly. Obviously, Google algorithms change all the time, but just in where we are right now, the way people search and what's important to people is changing rapidly. So like how people were searching for things in February of this year is very different than how they're searching for things now.
Sure.
And as people have kind of settled into the fact that, hey, the new normal is all online, people are searching differently. And we're doing a lot of online communities, creating for our clients things like Slack channels that used to typically just be for internal organizations are now becoming communities. Podcasts are obviously growing. Anything that allows the person to grow in their visibility online. We do actually a lot of microsites and websites for people with their virtual meetings and helping get attendance and create value for virtual meetings. So if it's online, our team is involved in it, doing whatever we can to help the clients get the visibility and importantly, the revenue growth back where it needs to be.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, obviously, everyone kind of needs that right now. So I assume, you've seen some pretty great growth in the last few months, which is probably awesome. So, Janet, I personally suck at SEO. I'm terrible at it. The other problem is my current company name is Podcasts by Joe, and there's already a Joe in podcasts who happens to have the biggest podcast in the world, which is Joe Rogan. So I'm always like the second, if even the second
Right.
one. So I can definitely learn a lot from you when it comes to SEO because I definitely need it. What would set? I've met a lot of people that do SEO and they talk about SEO and they say they're
Mhm.
really good at it. What sets Artform apart, especially on the SEO side, but really everything? And maybe the answer is just because you guys tackle everything under the sun when it comes to online. But what sets Artform apart from another company in your field that is either focusing on SEO or focusing on, um, you know, uh, visibility online?
Yeah, I think the big thing that sets us apart is that it's personalized solutions. And it's funny that you mentioned there's a lot of SEO companies out there that we actually white label for, because a lot of people say they do SEO but don't really know how to do SEO. And so I think it's important, like when a client comes to us, we always start with the audit of where they are now. And a lot of people don't know what keywords they're ranking for already. They don't know what keywords their competitors are ranking for. There's just important data that people are missing out on that really influences the direction that we advise and strategize for them personally for their business. So part of what we do, once we show them what keywords they're ranking for, what their competitors are ranking for, we also do a really deep dive target audience analysis. So it's really important to know not only what keywords they're looking for, but where are these target audiences living? Like what hashtags do they use? What's in their job titles? What podcasts do they listen to? What websites do they visit? And we do a really deep dive into that so that when we're putting out content and we're marketing for them, we are marketing where their audience is online. So we take the guesswork out of that. And then knowing what your competitors are doing is huge, because you can make a decision on whether or not you want to go after those terms that your competitors are ranking for, or do you just see some gaps and some things, long tail keywords, things that you can do. So it's a personalized solution, and I think that's what sets us apart from some SEO shops that just churn and burn and do the same thing over and over again. Ours is just a much more personalized solution.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Um, what would you say? And you were bringing it up. It is important. SEO is incredibly important. But why would you tell people that it is important that they know those few things that you were just mentioning? What their competitors are marketing towards, keywords that they're being found under. Why is this something that businesses should worry about when maybe a lot of businesses think, well, I'm doing okay right now. Maybe they're not doing as well as they could be. Why should companies care about SEO and figuring out these statistics that you're bringing up?
Well, I think the biggest reason is, like, one of the most frequently asked questions I get is, hey, I'm getting leads to my website, but they're not qualified leads. These are people, you know, people want qualified leads. You want to, the purpose of business, you're increasing your revenue, you're trying to reach the audience that you want to reach. So being able, often we look at a competitor's research and we can find not only keywords we might not have thought of, but also even some revenue streams we might not have thought of, some things that competitors are offering that my clients may not have even considered. So it's important to know, you find those gaps, you find the things that you can go after. It just helps to direct and put some thought and data behind, the strategies that you have to move
Sure.
forward.
Yeah. Are there any benchmark statistics that, let's say there's people listening that haven't necessarily thought about their SEO very much, or maybe they're just getting into it? Are there any benchmark statistics or stats that they should look for that would tell them that they're on the right track, or maybe that they're doing something correctly? Is there anything that they should think about when looking at those, when analyzing those?
Yeah, analyzing those. I mean, one of the great things that I think people miss out on, everybody has Google Analytics on their website, and if they don't, they should.
Yeah.
But when you look and you see what content and what keywords is driving the traffic to your site, I think it's also really important, and something people don't think about, is to look at where is the traffic leaving your site. So, for example, one of our clients was a communications company. They had a blog that was bringing in over 3,200 people a month, but people also exited on that page. So it brought people in, and actually more than the homepage, which is extremely unusual because it's usually the homepage is your biggest page. But people were coming to that page and then leaving. So I was like, let's go look at that page and see what's up. So we look at the blog page, and it's just a blog. There is no suggested content underneath. There's no calls to action anywhere
Hmm.
on the page. There was no newsletter form. So we took that page, I added suggested content, kind of like you would see on Amazon, because you shopped for this. This instead, it's because you read this article, you might be interested in these articles. And then we added a call to action on the right sidebar for signing up for a newsletter and why you should sign up for the newsletter. And suddenly the conversions went through the roof for them. And it was all in looking at that page and being able to determine, oh, this is a key thing to know. Where are people leaving my site, and what can I do to optimize the page? So it's more than SEO optimization, it's also CRO optimization, the conversion rate optimization. So people need to look at it both ways.
Sure. Yeah. Are there any tools that you would recommend that, business owners potentially, like you brought up, Google keywords. Are there any tools that you would recommend business owners download or get for their own sites that might be important? For example, things like Facebook pixels and Google AdWords and things like that.
Yeah, if you're running ads, I think everybody should be taking advantage of the Google suite of tools. So your Google Analytics, your Google Search Console, your Google Trends, the Data Studio, all of those free tools. I know we're all kind of watching Google right now to see what's going to happen with the lawsuit that
Yeah.
came, but they are the biggest, and they do have some great tools out there to use. You mentioned Pixel, so if you want to, there's Google AdWords. Different things to help you if you want to get into paid advertising, which is another story. But I should note that it's also important, Google's a business and they want to send the most relevant answer to a query that a user has. And so that's where SEO becomes important in your paid advertising, because if you've optimized a page correctly, Google sees it as relevant and it has a low bounce rate, and that makes your ads cost less, and your ad will be shown more often than somebody who just runs ads for their website and they're sending people to a home page instead of a landing page, and it hasn't been optimized for whatever they're advertising for. It will cost more and be shown less often than if you set your ad up correctly and you do a landing page and you optimize it for keywords and you optimize it for conversions. It's going to be shown more often and cost less. So
Right.
everything's related.
Cool.
So
What would you, a final question before, most of these I'm just throwing at you all of a sudden. I know they're not in the list, but what would you say to new people that maybe they're just starting a business and they don't know where to start with SEO? What would you say, first few things that they should do to get started, that kind of action steps they can take right after listening to this that'll get them in a better spot than where they were before they listened to this?
I think, if you're just starting out, let's say you haven't even built your website yet, I think the really important place to start with everything is to have a tone and messaging guide and your product positioning locked down. So you know what you want to say, how you want to say it, and you've put the research behind your product to position it correctly like you want to position it. That way, when you go to build your website, design your website, put the calls to action there, they are in line with your tone and messaging and your product positioning. So that should always come first. And a lot of people think about their logo, which is important, and that definitely establishes your design brand. But that tone and messaging and product positioning is super important as well. So you have those things in place first, and then you build your website around that. You use the keyword tool planners. There's, Screaming Frog is one. Google has a keyword tool planner. Moz has one. Ahrefs has one. There are a lot of SEO tools out there for free, and a simple Google of best keyword planner for free. I use paid tools because it's what I do, so I'm trying to think of ones that are free, but if you Google it, I know a lot comes up. But yeah, and know the keywords going into it. So know your keywords before you start writing your content, so you're not playing the catch-up game. And BuzzSumo is a great resource. You can use them for free to see what articles are trending in your industry. That's just a great free resource that you can use. I'm trying to think of some other ones. I'll send you a list, Joe, so you
That'd
can
be great. Yeah, I'll throw it in
in the
the show
comments.
notes. Yeah, that's awesome. So, Janet, who are your ideal clients? Do you guys work with anyone? Do you guys focus in, maybe a specific type of field? Are you guys better at SEO for one group than another? Like, who do you guys like to work with?
So just by the nature of my network, I work with a lot of government contractors. I also work, I have a lot of larger brands. I've been doing this a long time, so I've got a reputation, which has really helped. So yeah, so some of my larger clients are nonprofits and associations. I don't know if I should name my clients, but yeah, so we work with some really large brands, and then we also work with, I love local, so we work with some local small businesses as well. So we're kind of all over the place, but
cool.
The ideal client isn't a specific industry because everybody needs a digital presence right now.
Sure.
Everybody needs it.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. And I know I need to do a much better job at my, specifically the SEO side of things. I got the content down. I just need to make sure that I'm tagging it and making sure it appears more than it does, specifically on, the internet and not necessarily socials, but the internet.
Yeah, Jeff, I can just add that's one thing that's important, because Google loves their own products so much. It's really important that you claim your Google business listing and optimize it correctly, and that anything you put out on YouTube, you're taking advantage of optimizing that. People often forget that they can optimize on YouTube, but it makes a huge difference in your traffic if you optimize correctly.
Yeah, I think YouTube is one of the only places that I actually do optimize pretty well. I spend a good amount of time on YouTube optimizing because I learned from some really cool people who taught me how to do that well. But like my website, garbage, like terrible. I'm terrible at it. But anyways, Janet, this has been super, super cool and really educational for me. I definitely am going to look into a lot of these tools that you're bringing up. How can people get in touch with you if they have questions or if maybe they want to work with you? How can people reach out to you guys and get involved?
So our website is artformagency.com. So you can go there and connect. And then my email address is janet@artformbsi.com, which stands for Business Solutions, Inc. So either email me or reach out through the website. Love to answer any questions people have. I know this is such a high level and I love to get techy and dig deep, but tried not to.
Yeah. Well, this podcast specifically is a little bit more high level, but I definitely know that we could go very in detail on a lot of this stuff because you could talk forever about it. So, well, guys, thank you so much for listening. Obviously, all of the links that Janet mentioned to contact her and contact Artform will be in the description. Audio listeners, it's in the description. YouTube listeners, description. Everything is below, including some of the resources that Janet mentioned as well. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Janet, anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, thanks so much for having me, Joe. It's great to work with you.
Hey, I want to thank Janet one more time for coming on. Remember to check the show notes for all of the links to her stuff, including the Forbes Development Council, and you can look at all of that in the description. Remember to click subscribe or click another video that might be recommended for you or our newest video if you're new here. Thanks again for listening.